to know. Advanced, so I think it's one of these. Okay. All right, Darla.
I'd like to thank Todd for the introduction. Also thank Bill Harkleroad, Suni Oniana, Hannah Morgan for inviting us here tonight and making us part of this inaugural event. We're very excited to be here. Before I turn you over to Program Director Jeff O'Hanley to learn a little bit more about our battle with the water chestnut and whether or not we won, I'd like to tell you just a little bit about the organization that we represent. Founded in 1968, the Otsego County Conservation Association, also known as OCCA, is a private, nonprofit 501c3 membership organization. Our mission is to promote the appreciation and sustainable use of Otsego County's natural resources through education, advocacy, resource management, research, and planning. We have a staff of 3 right now, me, Jeff, and our environmental planner, Danny Lappin. We rely very heavily on volunteers to implement many of our programs, including the one that Jeff's going to talk to you about this evening. We currently have 12 board members. You may know some of our directors, including Vicki Lentz, who is here this evening. She's our board president. Bill Harmon, Donna Vogler, and Keith Brunstadt are also all on our board of directors. And our office is located at Mohican Farm. It's in the town of Springfield, north of the village of Cooperstown, just a little bit south of the Glimmerglass Opera. Our main program areas are water quality, land use and stewardship, solid waste and recycling, energy conservation, and alternative energy. Our annual budget is generally somewhere between $250,000 and $300,000 a year. On average, about 80 cents on the dollar goes directly to programming. Through our work, Otsego County Conservation Association protects, preserves, and enhances the natural resources of Otsego County, as it says here on this 4 impact chart. We do this primarily through education, stewardship, and advocacy. And with such a small staff, we recognize there's a limit to what we can do ourselves, so we also fund a lot of the other programs that similar nonprofits perform throughout the county that we can't perform ourselves. So Otsego County's hills, forests, water bodies, and farmland remain the driving force behind what we do at OCCA, and the health of these resources is important to all of us. Our county remains largely unspoiled and idyllic, and because of this, it has inspired a number of environmental groups to be formed over the years, including OCCA. And in my opinion, Otsego County is very lucky to have as many groups and people as it does working on its behalf. Let's face it, though, having all those different environmental groups, all of us doing great work on behalf of the environment in so many different ways, and often partnering on so many different programs, makes things very confusing for people sometimes. You probably recognize some of our partners: Delaware Otsego Audubon Society, the Otsego County Soil and Water Conservation District, Otsego Lake Association, Suni Oniana Biological Field Station, also known as BFS, DOAS, SWCD, You get the idea. Essentially, in addition to the water chestnut problem, which Jeff will talk about, we have another impossible mission on our hands, or seemingly impossible, and that's just getting people to recognize who we are and what makes us different from all of these other great organizations. How do we solve this? How does OCCA stand out from the environmental crowd? What makes us different? And making that distinction is not really easy, as you can kind of see. Many of us use the same key words on a day-to-day basis to describe what we're doing, and you've heard a lot of those tonight: protect, preserve, conserve. We're talking about water, land, and air all of the time. So it gets to be a little bit like an alphabet soup and very confusing. So recently, one of our board members helped me to take a step back and kind of look at what we really do to try to get at the core of what OCCA does and how we might distinguish ourselves. We definitely work on behalf of the environment, but what does that really mean? And actually, in our work on behalf of the environment, what we're really doing is helping people. And that makes us, at the heart of things, a service organization. And I had never really looked at OCCA myself that way before. We also noticed that many of our major programs and accomplishments all had one particular thing in or one particular thing in common. We are identifying a problem and then working to solve that problem. And these are some instances of that. At one point, we thought that hydrofracking was going to be imminent here in Otsego County. And most people had no idea what the overall quality of their groundwater was, their drinking water. OCCA developed a countywide groundwater testing program that proved that our water is good, better than good, in fact. And so that's looking at a problem, not really knowing what the baseline water quality is, and then solving that problem. When the water quality of Otsego Lake, which is the drinking water source for the village of Cooperstown, began to decline, OCCA launched a campaign that raised almost $500,000 to fund water quality improvement programs. All those programs continue today, and the lake has bounced back. A few years ago, landmen were signing gas leases all over the county, but nobody really knew how many were being signed, and no one really knew where. So OCCA and its volunteers dug through all the hard copy leases at the county building to create a gas lease map for Otsego County that showed where the leases were being signed, and that was actually one of the first of its kind. And when property owners recently were threatened by a power line proposal that would run through the heart of Otsego County through the agricultural lands, our research resulted in more than 150 pages of ways in which that power line simply was not compatible or in keeping with the county's rural character, and so far the Public Service Commission agrees. So basically, OCCA, we're problem solvers. That's who we are. In all of these examples I've given you, we've identified a problem and we've worked to find a solution. Solving problems for many people is what we do, and that's to benefit the environment. And that really is us in a nutshell, and now I'm going to hand you over to Jeff, and he will tell you about water chestnut in particular. Thanks.
Thank you. All right. Well, thank you very much. In late summer of 2006, OCCA was alerted to a problem. Members of the Goodyear Lake Association approached us and told us that a new plant had been found in Goodyear Lake, a plant that had not been seen there before, and a plant that was increasing in numbers very rapidly. That plant was water chestnut. This is not the water chestnut that makes your shrimp and Chinese vegetables crunchy and tasty. This particular water chestnut is a highly invasive plant that came from Europe and Central Asia. It was introduced into the United States in the 1880s, actually on purpose. We didn't necessarily know any better then. And it was actually quickly found to be a problem, that it reproduced very rapidly and started to take over the water bodies where it was. It is now found throughout much of the northeastern United States. Okay. Now, the definition of an invasive species, for those of you who are not familiar, is that it is an organism that is not native to the area in question and causes or is likely to cause harm to the environment, the economy, and or human health. And this particular water chestnut checks off all of those boxes. Okay. If we look at the lower right-hand side, you see 3 seeds of the water chestnut. They are very spiky and very hard. They can cause serious injury if you step on them with a bare foot. And in fact, if you step on them with a thin-soled shoe or boot, you can puncture that shoe and hurt yourself as well. In spring, those seeds will germinate, and each one will send up several stems that grow up through the water. It grows in lakes and ponds and slow-moving river systems. Those stems can reach 12 to 16 feet long, and they are topped with several rosettes, such as you see in the upper left. Okay. These are floating leaves that will reach the surface and float on top, and at full size, those can be about 10 inches across by the end of the summer. Okay. And each rosette can ultimately produce around 20 new seeds. Okay. So the estimate based on how this plant grows is that one single seed that starts growing in spring can produce potentially 300 new nuts in one season. Okay. So very rapid growth. Okay. And as the density of the plants and the population increases, it definitely leads to some environmental problems. Okay. This is a picture of a part of Goodyear Lake known as the Stump Lot in around 2007. That is pretty much all water chestnut growing across the top. Okay. When the plant is mature like this, it grows across the surface of the water, and it blocks sunlight and changes the environment beneath it. Okay. Normally where you would have a diverse population of different plants growing along the bottom, the lack of sunlight kills those plants off, reduces the diversity of plants, and in turn reduces the diversity of animals that can live in there. Okay? In autumn, as these plants start to die back, the decomposition of the leaves can potentially deplete oxygen from the water column, could lead to stress on the aquatic life as well as fish kills. Okay? And in terms of wildlife, it is a poor food. Things do not really eat it. In my own experience with this plant, you very rarely see insects actually eating it. You do not see things eating the seeds. I don't think you could really swallow something that looks like that. Okay? And from recreational standpoint, you can't swim in that. Okay? And getting a boat through there is very difficult, and actually boating through an infestation like that is liable to break parts of the plant off and send it potentially to other environments where it can continue to colonize. Okay? Now, Goodyear Lake itself is an important community center in the town of Milford. It's on the Susquehanna River, between Oneonta and Cooperstown. There are some roughly 500 homes that surround the lake. These include permanent year-round residences as well as summer camps. Okay? The lake itself is a pretty big draw for tourists. People come up, they spend time here, they spend weekends or weeks in the summer. It's a major site for fishing, boating, and swimming, and it's also an important wildlife habitat. There are a number of fish that live in there. It also has a pretty good bird population. Bald eagles nest in the area and are frequently seen flying over the lake and plucking fish out of there. Okay? The infested area back in 2006 was a portion called the Stump Lot. That is the area that is circled. It's at the northernmost edge of Goodyear Lake. And the fear was that as that infestation spread, that it would fill most of the stump lot and then spread downstream into the major portion of the lake, and fears also that it would spread further down the Susquehanna River system. And if you're familiar with the Susquehanna, it is the major source of freshwater input to Chesapeake Bay, which is an estuary of national significance. If you like crabs and shellfish, a lot of that comes from down there. Okay? So there were a lot of fears that this could have negative impacts through a large area of our region. And being the problem solvers that we are, we put our heads together and tried to figure out what is it that we can do about this. And our research led to a couple of potential solutions. Okay. The first one is mechanical harvesting. I always call this the weed whacker boat. I used to work in Central Park, and we had one of these boats that went out on the lakes and sucked up algae blooms every year. Okay. The advantage of this is a specially modified boat that essentially uses like a conveyor system to chop the plants off and send them up the conveyor belt, and they eventually get dumped. The advantage is they're efficient. They can clear a large area in a relatively short time. Okay. The disadvantage is they're kind of expensive to rent or buy, and they're non-selective. Okay. As this plant goes, as the boat goes through, it's pulling up the water chestnut, but it's also pulling up native water lilies, native pond weeds, plants that we want to have on hand. It will also occasionally pull up a fish or turtle that happens to be in the way, and that's not something you really want. Okay? Another potential solution was the use of herbicides. Okay? Many experts in the field recommended using a particular herbicide to spray the water chestnut and to get it under control. And I want to say that OCCA, we recognize that there are times when pesticides, either herbicides or insecticides and whatnot, are the right solution. Okay? We weren't sure that that was the case here. Okay? The advantage, of course, is that it kills plants dead. The disadvantage is there, again, are potential impacts to non-target species. Again, those native pond weeds that are still somehow surviving in and amongst the water chestnut. And there's also the potential for impacts on wildlife and human health. So we were not necessarily going to rule out herbicides, but it was not something we wanted to go right to. Okay? And then the third solution was hand pulling. And that is exactly what it sounds like. You get people out on the water in boats, and they're reaching in and they're pulling water chestnuts. The advantage to this is it has the least environmental impact of all of the methods that we researched. Okay? It has little effect on non-target species. Yes, occasionally you'll get something else in there as you're pulling up your water chestnut, but not to the extent that you would on the weed whacker boat. Okay? The disadvantages is it requires a lot of people, a trained workforce who can recognize what a water chestnut is and pull the right plants. It requires multiple visits to the site over a long term. And if you've ever done it, has anybody here ever helped out with water chestnut pulling? No? There we go. It can be hot and dirty and buggy work. You get wet, you're in the sun if it's sunny, you're in the rain if it's raining. So it can be kind of miserable for people. You can probably guess which one we chose. We chose the hand pulling. And after we did, we were told by a number of those experts, it can't be done. Okay? And what they felt was that the infestation in Goodyear Lake was too big and that the plants were too well established. Conventional wisdom basically said you can hand pull a new infestation, that it's small enough you can get in there and you can get it out without too much problem. But for something this large, you need mechanical or you need herbicides. We did it anyway. Okay? One of the things early on, we approached the Department of Environmental Conservation for a grant to help us purchase equipment and to help us do this program. And one of the things that we stated in that grant was our desire to build community. And by setting up a hand-pulling program, we were able to reach out to the community and involve many more people. In that grant, one of our goals, it was stated to, quote, build community concern and vigilance regarding the water chestnut. And we've been able to do that. The thing about the mechanical harvesting and the herbicides is, in a sense, other people do it. You're kind of hiring somebody, they're going out there for a day, spraying it down. In this case, you're out there multiple times, you're engaging with the community, you're getting them involved. We made direct personal contact with hundreds of people through this program and worked very closely with members of the Goodyear Lake Association who tapped their membership to help bring volunteers to us. We also worked very closely with the Biological Field Station through SUNY. Our board members came out, our staff came out. The town of Milford provided a dump truck so that we could cart the water chestnut away once it was pulled. We reached out to the community at large, and we entered into an agreement with the Headwaters Youth Conservation Corps, okay, all of whom came out and helped out. Okay. Now, participants had multiple reasons for coming out and getting involved in this program. There were those who were dedicated environmentalists and wanted to help and wanted to contribute in a positive way. There were homeowners who were concerned that an infestation of water chestnuts would reduce their property values, which is one of those impacts of invasive species. Okay. There were other people who were concerned that they would not be able to fish or take their boats out in the lake and wanted to make sure that it was maintained as a place of recreation. There were those who just wanted to come out and have a nice day on the lake and paddle around. And there were students who needed community service credit or extra credit in a class. If anybody's taking Paul Lord's classes, you may be contacting us later in the year, as he's always good that way. Okay. The motivation was not really important to us. What was important is that they were coming out and that they were helping and that they were making a difference. And you can see that they were definitely had a positive impact. Okay. I will mention that we got funding from the DEC, which allowed us to purchase canoes so we could get out there and not have to rely on other people. It helped us with program administration. We received other grants that allowed us to embark on more education, pamphlets, signage to reach out to people and say, these are problem invasive species, here's how to deal with them. Okay. We also reached out directly, again, to the Goodyear Lake community and received generous contributions from people who respected the work that we were doing to their lake, in a sense, for them and as well as for everybody else. Okay. Now, the results were pretty darn good for something that could not be done. Okay. Again, in July 2007, let me backtrack for a second. We did manage to get a few pulls done in late 2006, and we cleared close to 90% of the surface area of the lake in a few short days. The problem was we got there a little bit late in the season and the plants had already dropped their seeds, so coming into 2007, it seemed like the water chestnuts exploded and increased in area across the lake. Okay. I believe in 2007 we harvested about 9,000 pounds of water chestnut. In 2008 we reached our high water mark and pulled about 24,000 pounds. Okay. And at that point we started to really see the impact. Each year the amount harvested has come down. This past year, this summer, in 6 events going out there, we found all of about 150 pounds. Okay? So we're looking on those 2 images. We're in about the same location on the lake. Big difference in terms of what's found. Okay? We have a volunteer who's been working with us since the beginning, a member of the Goodyear Lake Association, and he told me that on one of the first days they went out there, way back when, 10 years ago, they collected all day and they filled a dump truck, okay, top to bottom with water chestnut, and you know that the dump truck is pretty large. And he said that watching that dump truck at the end of the day, he actually felt discouraged, because when he looked back out at the water, it looked no different to him. That's how extensive the infestation was. Okay. Now, the difference is where people may be discouraged is they come out with us and they travel around all day, 3 hours or so on the lake, and they find 3 or 4 plants. Okay. And it's discouraging in the sense that you want to pull plants and you want to get your hands dirty, but it's also encouraging. It's a testament to the work that so many people have done over time. Okay. At this point, we're spending more time searching for the plants than we are actually hauling them out. Okay. So bad news, good news. It's actually good news, really. Okay. Moving forward, invasive species are not going away. This is a topic that has been on a lot of minds lately. You certainly hear a lot about it. Water chestnut itself, we are winning the battle in Goodyear Lake, and which is great. We also do find it in other water bodies in Otsego County. We have worked with volunteers from Oneonta in the past on a property just behind the police barracks on Route 7. And actually this Saturday we'll be working with 10 volunteers or so on another property where it has spread in Otsego, not far. So, we have to keep fighting this fight. In addition, there are other invasive species out there, plant and animal, aquatic and terrestrial, that are impacting our community. Japanese knotweed on the lower left, wild parsnip on the upper right are 2 particular plants that are all over the place these days and growing in numbers. You've probably seen them. Okay? And as we look into how to fight them without the wholesale use of herbicides, we keep hearing the same thing that we heard when we started fighting the water chestnut. It can't be done that way, and it's impossible. Okay? Our efforts over in Goodyear Lake have shown us that it's not impossible, that we can make a difference and get these things under control. Okay? And again, what we've done, do you recognize somebody in there? Oh, yeah. Okay. That there's a community out there that is willing to help and willing to contribute and willing to be involved, and it doesn't matter whether they're homeowners looking to protect their property values or college kids looking for credits. Okay? It's people who are interested in getting out, getting their hands on, and helping out. And through those kinds of programs and that kind of effort and community work, we're confident that we can make the impossible possible. So, OCCA. All right. So thank you very much.